Can we make sure that it's recorded? Excellent, thank you.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this meeting, the December meeting, which is the last meeting of the year. And so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Let me go ahead and do the roll call first before we take the votes. So let me share the name of the people whom I see on the screen. Grant?
Present.
Martin?
Yes.
Bill?
Here.
Avi?
Here.
Glenn?
Yay.
A yes from my side. We also have Andrew, Lisa Jones, Shelby, Lauren Thomas, Callie, and Matt Tersaro, who is going to be our future board member from next month. So thank you so much for joining today's meeting. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So I hope you all can see my screen. Before I would say this conflict of interest and antitrust policy, I would like to take the approval of minutes from the last board meeting. So I will start off with the names that I see on my screen. Or let me ask if you have any questions about it. Okay, I'll start off with Grant.
Approved.
Martin.
Yes, approved.
Avi.
Yes.
Feed. Okay, 1 second. Glenn.
Yeah.
Bill.
Yes.
Okay, a yes from my side. We do have Jubin as well. So for Jubin, we are taking the approval for the minutes of the meeting from the past face-to-face board meeting that we had. So just wanted to check with you on the votes.
Yep, I reviewed, yes.
Thank you. And whosoever is marking the attendance, can you please add Jubin's name as well? Jubin is present.
Yep, done.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Andrew, do you want to talk about the conflict of interest and antitrust statement?
Yeah, just really quickly, because we all work for different organizations, it's really important that that need to announce any conflict of interest issues, and if they are going to benefit in any appreciable way, whether perceived or in actuality, they should recuse themselves from any voting. You can be in the discussion, but after you've actually announced that you've actually been in, that you may have a conflict of interest. Now, the next thing is that essentially, if there is to be a change of agenda, it needs to have a 2/3 vote according to Robert Rules so there's going to be one tabling here, for example. The tabling is an example of where a supermajority is required according to the antitrust policy. So there's that.
Anyone has any questions about that? Hope everyone is clear about that. I assume it, yes. Now, I think I would give it over to Shelby to take us through the reports. Especially, we wanted to take a look at the summary from November, December, and the financial narratives, and even October. Let me just stop sharing.
Sounds good. Did you want me to start with October? I had November pulled
Absolutely. Yes, because if you remember when we were discussing in the board meeting, in-person board meeting, we didn't have the October stats as well, because we didn't pull at that time.
Okay, just give me 1 second to get October pulled up.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
You can see it.
You can see the financial narrative for October.
Yes, we can see that.
Yep.
Okay. Great, thank you. So I'll just go through the financial narrative for October quickly. Just a reminder that these financials only consider the US activity. So revenue on an accrual basis for October was 1.4 million approximately versus a budget of 1.9 million. So we were about 505,000 under budget as of October. So the drivers for this, corporate membership was at 458,000, which was about 250,000 ahead of budget of 208,000. And then individual memberships at 233,000 approximately were about 17,000 under the budget of 250. Donations as of October were at 144,000. Now, the budget here does include $100,000 of grant revenue that we don't expect to receive at this point. So donations in actuality were $72,000 ahead of budget. And then year-to-date event income as of October was about $588,000, which was $679,000 under the budget of 1.26 million. So the largest drivers there were the fact that the budget included $665,000 in expected revenue for Global AppSec in San Francisco. That was just because the budget had expected us to recognize the revenue in October, when in actuality the event occurred in November. So that's, you'll see in the November financial report where we recognize that revenue. Going down, expenses through October were about 1.2 million compared to the approved budget of 1.87 million. So expenses were about $676,000 under. This does include $90,000 of that grant expense that, again, we're not expecting to incur those expenses either. So the reasons for this, projects were about $132,000 under budget. Again, that 90,000 is built in there. So projects at that point were actually $43,000 under budget, under spending. Events were under budget by $523,000. And that's because we hadn't yet to recognize the spend for AppSec San Francisco. And then you'll see in November as well, we still haven't recognized a lot of the spend. The only thing that we recognized in November were some prepaids that were sitting for flights. I believe we're still waiting on that final bill for food and accommodation.
Mm-hmm. Shelby, Avi has a question for you.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't see that.
Avi, you are on mute. You're speaking.
That's what I was saying. Sorry. Thank you. So it seems that most of these things were actually doing better than expected, with the exception of the event, which everything is further delayed. And that's not that we didn't do as well as we thought. It's just we haven't recognized it yet. Is that right? I mean, the revenue is there. We just haven't recognized it yet.
Oh yeah, and when I get to November, you'll see that the numbers show we did really well for the Global AppSec US in San Francisco.
Excellent, thank you.
Perfect. So as of October, net income was $229,000. We had approved a budget profit of $59,000, so we were actually ahead by $170,000. And then cash, well, we'll just move over to the financial report for October. So we had cash at 2.28 million, which is really good. Accounts receivable was about $116,000. If you go down, you'll see that in prepaid expense right now, as of October, we just had Dublin. And then you can see AppSec US in prepaid expenses, we only had about like 6.6 thousand in cost. This is mostly for flights. And then accounts payable as of October was 38,000. So that's basically it for October. Unless anyone has questions, I'm going to jump into November because these are the most updated totals.
What are these suspense funds?
The suspense funds, so those usually it's like when a payment comes in and accounting doesn't know where to apply it to, they'll put it to suspense and then they'll dig into whoever paid us. And so ideally we want to have nothing in suspense funds because this is just, it hasn't been applied to the correct place.
Got it.
So you'll see actually there's a jump, the suspense funds took another direction. Next month I'll explain where that came from. Okay. So going out of October, let's go to November. All right. So for November, year-to-date revenue on an accrual basis is approximately 2.7 million compared to the budget of 2.06 million. So as of November, we're actually $630,000 ahead of budget. For November, corporate memberships are at $488,000 or $259,000 ahead of budget. Our budgeted corporate memberships were $229,000. Individual memberships are at $254,000, which is an increase of $21,000 from last month. We are still trending slightly under budget as the budget is $275,000. Donations are at $147,000 year to date. And if you remove that $100,000 of grant income we budgeted, we're actually $67,000 ahead of budget. Event income, which is our largest driver, has a year-to-date total of $1.8 million in revenue. So this is $453,000 ahead of what we budgeted. We budgeted $1.35 million. So the biggest driver there is that we budgeted to receive $665,000 in revenue for the Global AppSec in San Francisco. In reality, we received $787,000 in sponsorships, and we got a $416,000 payout from Eventbrite for registrations. So in total, the event was $537,000 over the budgeted revenue amount. So we'll go down to expenses. Total expenses year to date were about Oh, Avi.
Sorry, no, this is Bean. Sorry. Oh, Avi has his hand up. I apologize.
Yeah,
Go,
Jimmy,
Avi.
go ahead.
I'll go
Jimmy,
next.
you go first.
I insist. You go first.
Fine. Those registrations, I just want to verify that actually also includes training revenue, correct? Because it's from Eventbrite. I assume it all comes together.
It did come in a lump sum payout, so I'd imagine that it includes both. I could get a breakdown from Eventbrite if you would like.
Less critical at this point. Just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
That does include training, sorry.
Oh, thank you, Kelly.
So that 500 and something, so is that the net profit after cost incurred, or is that just revenue so far? We don't know what the profit is.
That's just revenue so far. We don't have the final hotel bill for accommodation and food, and that's going to be the largest chunk of it. I did have about $7,000 in expenses for flights, and that's all that I've recognized so far for the global event.
Yeah, we're expecting quite a substantial set of bills. They're still to come in. There's also the attrition part of it, because the bill is based upon use of hotel rooms, and we didn't fill up the block. It's going to be a bit larger than normal. So although it sounds like we've got an awful lot of cash on hand, the reality is it's not. So we still need to pay attention to expenses.
And Shelby or Andrew, does anybody know if we're going to be positive or if we're going to break even or negative? Roughly, given these numbers.
Kelly or Lauren, do you know?
I'm going to say that we're going to come very close to making a small profit.
Okay.
I just received the final bills from the hotel, so I've got to go through them before I submit them for payment, but yeah, it's gonna be close, but I'm hoping that we do make some kind of a small profit.
Another big expense I want to make sure that isn't, I'm not seeing it, I want to make sure it's not getting lost, is paying the trainers.
That's already been distributed.
That's already been, okay.
Yeah, I think there was actually just one trainer who has not submitted their invoice yet, but everybody else has.
All right. I can jump into the expenses now. So total expenses year to date are approximately 1.3 million, as opposed to a budget of 2 million. We're about $723,000 under budget in expenses through November. But like Andrew just noted, we're still waiting on big expenses for the global event. So project expend was about $139,000 under budget. If you remove that 90,000 in grant expenses, we're about 50,000 under budget in reality. Event spending is at $293,000, which at this point is about $570,000 under budget. So again, that largest driver is going to be our global AppSec US cost. We had budgeted expected expenses of $520,000. But at this point, I've only recognized the $7,000 for the flights. Chapters and outreach were combined $44,000 under budget. And then G&A was over budget by $24,000 due to legal fees. So with all the above, net income shakes out to about 1.39 million, which is 1.35 million ahead of the budgeted revenue, which we budgeted at $41,000 year to date. Net income is up from the prior year by about $1.1 million. And going into the package, as you can see, we have cash at 2.67 million, which is $393,000 more than last month and $1.3 million more than last year. So this is a 95% year-over-year increase, which looks really good, but we do have to wait for the rest of those bills to come in. Going down, we have about $9.7 thousand in AP, and our project balances are still in restricted at $68,000. So if you remove those from cash, we're left at 2.5 million. So this equates to 20 months of cash reserves to cover operating expenses, and then 14.9 months of cash reserves to cover all monthly expenses. And then you'll see our suspense funds. It actually has a weird credit amount right now. This is due to two payments. One is an ACH and one is a Money Corp payment that I have asked Caitlin in accounting to identify. She still is looking into what these payments are for. So once I have confirmation, those will move to the correct expense accounts. I just wanted to clarify what those were. Other than that, let me know if you have any questions on November financial report.
I'll just jump in and just quickly say, we've got three choices actually in the slides as well. We need to think about whether or not we invest in mission, invest in investments, or spend, on additional things that, like bumping up the chapters, expenses, project expenses, and things like that. At the end of the day, our operating reserves, Shelby, what is it at the moment in terms of months?
Oh, 14.9 months.
Yeah. Once we've paid all the bills and we know where we're at, we'll be able to finish off the 2023 budget. But there's still an opportunity if we've significantly ahead of our budget to invest in programs, or invest in a staff member, or invest in, in an investment such as a index stock fund or something like that that can provide income and help us weather future bumps. That's definitely a board level decision, but I would recommend us thinking about how do we actually make better use of our funds? I'm happy to live with 12 months of operational reserve. I think we're starting to get to a little bit too much, but we'll see what it drops down to once we've paid all of our bills. Happy to take any discussion on that.
We do have an agenda item that Glenn has raised to discuss budgets for next year, and that's probably a good place to bring this in.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Shelby. I think no more questions there.
Mhm. Can someone just step through the slides?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to. I've been trying to load them for the better part of 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and they've just not loaded for me on my end. So I'll try very hard to squint and see what's on the slides.
Andrew, can you please ping me the link? I'll open it for you.
Yep, it's go to where the packages are. It's the top link.
The December
Down.
board summary?
That's correct, yeah.
Perfect. Can you see on my screen?
I can barely see it, but I'll twist and zoom and yeah, just go to the first slide.
Yes.
Like, yeah, just keep going until you see my update. Yeah, I took a little bit of leave, so there's a little less to, sorry, go back one. Yeah, I took a little bit of leave after AppSec San Francisco, so there's a little less happening. A major focus since coming back was fundraising. That was a little disappointing. We only raised about $1,000. I don't know if any of the board members want to be recognised on stream, but thank you to those who did donate. Thank you so much about that. And my goal for December is to get through the performance reviews. I've completed all of them, but I haven't presented them to the actual individual staff members yet. That is about to happen. If anyone is interested in that, I can talk to you offline about it. Anyway, the next slide, please.
Still with us, Andrew?
In spirit only.
Well, I think the
Nope.
slides kind of
Nope.
speak for themselves.
Andrew, did we lose you?
Yeah, he's off the list.
Yeah, let's wait for a few minutes.
You might not realize he might still be talking.
I know. So maybe somebody else can read them in until he comes back, because I think they are self-explanatory, or somebody
So
else can
Yeah.
take them.
the two new board members, the
Oh.
two newly elected board members have had the conflict of interest agreement sent to them and signed them. And the virtual strategy session has been planned in. Welcome back, Andrew. All right.
Okay. Sorry, my phone decided to try to reconnect to my Wi-Fi network, which is down, and it just didn't work. Okay, so we're getting through the onboarding of the new board members. The main one that's outstanding is Mark Curfey. He's now signed. We will be doing challenge coins for various things at events and awards, generally for OWASP events rather than third-party events. They're relatively cheap to do, and I think people enjoy getting them, so we'll be doing that. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry, Andrew, can you explain what that is for those not familiar with the concept? Like me?
Yeah, so challenge coins are little coins that have got a design upon them, saying, for example, AppSec Dublin, or that you've won a particular CTF or you participated in something. So for those people who are interested in something more than just simply a badge, I know some people collect their event badges and put them on the back of their doors and things like that. People like the coins because they're much more easily, you can take them home a lot easier, and they're generally easier to store once you're at home, and you can store them easily as well. So,
And what do you do with them?
They're just
well,
collectibles.
you admire them. Yeah, they're not anything amazing. You know, it's not going to life change anyone, but for those folks who are just starting out in their careers, it might be something really happy to have for them.
I mean,
Okay.
and Andrew,
So-
we can also have like culture things around it of like, if you're happen to be at a bar with a bunch of OWASP people, and if everybody pulls out a coin and you don't have it, you're buying that round. Like we have those types of cultures on my work where we get challenge coins, and we can like let the community come up with their own cultures around what it means to have coins.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. The coins is
Really
very
participation token.
non-European.
It's a US Army thing originally,
Yeah.
which is why it's
It's
and
totally
their
not in Europe.
culture.
All right. I guess I'm too old for that.
Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. We've already been through the finance slides, so I hope you've had a chance to review these. You skip through it. It's a graphical representation of what Shelby's just told you, and so that can be very handy if you like me and module auditory. Suffice to say, we're doing very healthily at the moment. Okay. And if we
Andrew,
get to
maybe you
members,
switch off your. Can you
Martin
switch off
wants
your
to say
video?
something.
Yeah, can you switch off your video maybe when you're on your phone, because I get a hard time hearing you now and then.
yep. Is that better?
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, I'm down to 1 bar. So yeah. It's just essentially a graphical version of what Shelby's been through. We're really healthy. So if we go to membership now.
Right, membership for Lisa Jones.
Yep. So
Lisa?
Lisa? Is Lisa here?
Oh,
If not,
we're
I'll do it.
doing our slides. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. So just go forward on slide.
Yeah.
Should I stop sharing? Or shall we go ahead like this?
Yeah, it's just 1 slide, so it's fine. Oh, 2 slides. So Lisa, just go through the members and chapters. If there's any sort of things the board should know about chapters, that'd be fine.
Oh, okay. We're just a little under our goal of 7,000. We're at 6,366 members. Kind of, slow. Complimentary membership dropped off slightly. So we just missed our stretch goal of 7,000.
It is a stretch goal, so we did well. This is the highest ever individual member count that we've ever had, so we're still doing very well for individual memberships there. It's a substantial revenue stream now. So next slide.
But if your lifetime membership is taken off, we're at 951. It's steadily increasing.
That's really good. Yeah, so the chapter page.
Chapter page. So we had 5 new chapters. We still have some chapters that are lagging once they're approved to create their page. 3 of those chapters I'm working with were reactivation with new leaders. So they were previously inactive, and then we got new leaders to reactivate. So that was great. And then meetup participation and events and RSVPs down below.
Can I ask something?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, at one of the conferences in Europe this year, just a month back, somebody asked me that if, let's say, my chapter or my area does not have a meetup account, and I cannot host 4 meetup, like I can host 4 meets, but then I cannot post it on Meetup. Is there any way I can still sustain the chapter? Do we have such provisions for them?
I'm sorry, you were in and out. I didn't hear the whole thing.
Okay,
Bandana.
so there are certain regions in the world
Mhm.
who do not have access to Meetup.
Mhm.
But when we talk about chapters being active, deactivating chapters, we only consider Meetup at the moment. But in the future, are we considering those chapters as well who are hosting meetups in the name of OWASP, and they do want to continue, but they cannot post it on meetup.com?
Okay.
Are there
so
any provisions?
Meetup is not, Meetup was the application that was offered to the chapters by the foundation and paid for because it has an API integration. The OWASP website is where they're supposed to be posting the meeting information. Meetup was added later because it has a lot of functionality for scheduling, registration, emailing, RSVPing, and then it had the API integration with the OWASP website so that the leaders could plan their whole year pretty much out, and put the information in there, and it would automatically update the OWASP website. And the chapter leader wouldn't have to do it manually. There's been a, I don't know, kind of maybe a breakdown of communication. The OWASP website is the site that they could post it, discoverable information like time, location, if it's in person or virtual, to show the activity, and it should be on there before it occurs for it to be counted as chapter activity. The meetup, again, people use Compass, but then they have to post it manually to our website because of the API integration is, I don't believe, available yet. But we will pay for the meetup. I thought Meetup was available globally. I haven't run into a country that it's not available, but there may be one. If they haven't requested it, they won't have it. We don't automatically create it because then the billing starts once I create it. But if they request it, I'll be glad to create it for them.
Got it. Thank you. Anyone has any questions? Lisa, we can go ahead, move further.
Yep. Just really quickly, I'm just cognizant of time. We'll just go through projects. If there's any event questions, please do hassle us and we'll go through the events real quick. But projects, just the next slide. Harold, do you just want to go through the highlights?
The really important thing here is the project audit part of it. We have the flagship projects are now complete. We didn't find anything that was violating vendor neutrality. There's a couple of flagship projects whose websites could probably benefit, with more OWASP signage, if you will, that you wouldn't know that they were OWASP projects without delving deeply into the page. But that so far is the status of the audit. There's the secondary issue here, or the last item on the slide. That's the project committee recommended that the board consider changing the following flagship projects to production level projects based on whether or not the board feels that they are strategic. Those 3 projects there. Go ahead, next slide.
Avi has a question.
Sorry, Harold, can you go back a second?
Yeah, I'm just trying to go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here we go.
So first thing I would, in general, we haven't voted on it, but I like where you're going, Harold, about demoting these, not demoting, resetting their flagship status to production level. I
Yep.
think there might be a few others that need that. I think you might want to be a bit more aggressive on that. And again, like you said, if they're to be flagship, it really needs to be strategic importance. So
Yeah, these are the only ones that the project committee recommended. It is certainly, the board's prerogative to review the flagship projects that we have.
all right. The other question I have is around licenses. The flagship projects, I mean, we support any open source license,
Yes.
but some of those licenses can be problematic, i.e. things like GPL and stuff like that. Did you review for that as well? When you say overt violations around that?
So I don't know that we have the current, I don't think the license was mentioned in the audit.
Mm.
But I will add it. It won't take long to go through it.
Awesome, thank you.
Martin has a question.
Yeah, I'm not sure about it. I think that the promotion and declaration in status, if you want to call it like this, I think the board should help guide the rules. I think it's not a strategic or thing for the board to decide if a approach. Sorry.
Can someone mute the new
Yeah, I
attendee?
muted him. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the board should not be the one who decides. The committee should forward the reasoning, and if I think it's not about only if they are strategic or importance, but that the ruling should be done by the board, but not the looking into the review.
So
I
the
think
definition, Martin, the definition of a flagship project is that it is of strategic importance, and the projects committee placed that responsibility back with the board, that determination.
Yeah, so I think the board should decide what is strategic or not, but not go through all the projects if they are strategic or not. I think the committee should look into that and to forward to board the decisions they want to make, why, and we can vote. It's not that the board can review that. So I think it should not be just look into those, are they strategic or not. I think the should ask question should be what are the strategic, what is the strategy of the board, and if we have a misalignment by what is the strategy, then there's not a problem with the committee, right? Because the committee should know what is the strategic for next year or the greater strategic for OWASP. So, for example, if I see security shepherd, what's the training application? Is there a question if they are strategic or not? It's what is our strategic goal? It's not is the project strategic.
Yeah, I think that's what the committee has done, and these are the ones I think are no longer as strategic as the others.
So that I think the word strategic is something then maybe misleading, because I don't think that they say either the security shepherd is strategic or not, but is the quality still up or is up to date as it should be, right? So I want to have more than just a look into this. I want to have some. I would like to see some reasoning for the future boards to make easier decisions on this.
Yes, I can forward you the reasonings that were listed and get back to them, because they'll probably have to reiterate to me what they were, because I think we just went over them in the meeting itself.
It may be worth having them join either the
Yes.
January or February board meeting, and let's talk through.
Probably not January, probably going to be busy with other things, but yes, I agree with that. I agree with everything Martin said. I just want to point out that as long as we do not have an explicitly stated strategy, it's kind of hard for them to align with that strategic importance, which we should be putting on our Dublin agenda.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Cool. It's 11:15 my time. So are there any further questions on projects before we move on to events, just real quick? Okay. We have the slides moved on to the events, and there's so many events that what I'd probably suggest is if the board's got any questions, Kelly or Lauren can answer them for you. But other than that, I would like to return the floor to Vandana.
Anyone
any
has
questions?
oh, yes,
Yes,
Avi
sorry,
has
go
a
ahead.
question.
I always do, don't I? I just want to point out that we had discussed previously that we would have a longer plan out, at least a year or more in advance of at least the global events. I don't see you listed AppSec US 2023 or whatever we're calling it at this point. And I feel
DC.
like
Sorry, we are going back and forth. We've narrowed it down between 2 hotels right now. The issue that we're having is actually dates and holding the conference first and the training following the conference. So kind of flip-flopping what we normally our pattern. But that's for 23, 24 and 26 are already signed and on the website in San Francisco.
wow. So we're still stuck on 20. We have 24 and 26, but not 23 or 25.
23, we're just waiting for one, like I said, the 2 out of the 2 hotels, one of them just to come back with dates to see if we flip-flopped. That's the one way it will work at the hotel that we really like. The only thing is that it's over Halloween here in the US. So we're trying to stay away from every holiday possible. But if that is our only choice, then that's what we're going to be going with. And if that is the case, this isn't confirmed, but if that's the case, it'll be October 30th to November 3rd in Washington, DC at the Marriott Marquis.
We should know by the end of this week, hopefully by the end of the day today, but by the end of the week, definitely we'll know.
So I just want to be clear, my comment was less about the details, more about having that planning further in advance.
Yeah. So
Having it on.
20,
Yeah.
like I said, 24 and 26 are done. And 23, like I said, we're just waiting for the other one to come back.
Yeah, and so in Europe, we need local helpers. We've had a really good submission from London for 2024. And so we're likely to do London in 2024, but we need to touch base with them a lot more before we firm that up.
I think London is, oh, sorry, I see Avi has hands up.
Avi has hands up.
Yeah.
Avi?
Sorry, I forgot to put it down before.
Okay.
So I think
Martin,
London
you
is
were saying
very
something.
active. So London is a very active chapter, so I think definitely they deserve this part.
Yeah.
We have been in London a lot lately. London, Ireland. What is easier maybe for the English speaking, but still I think we should, for the future, look also the other areas of Europe. But after my departure from the board at the end of the month, I will see to focus more on that.
That'd be very good. Yeah, we're trying to get it out to at least 2 years in advance because we have, as you've just experienced, the dates for DC are really, really tight if we don't organize them well in advance. So we do need to get them back out to 2 to 3 years in advance. Okay, and with that, if there's no more questions, I'll hand it back to Vandana and we can move on to the other agenda.
Sure. Thank you so much. Let me reshare the screen. One second. I'll have to go back because I'll have to stop the. All right. Please let me know once you're able to see my screen.
There we go.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Andrew, everyone, for sharing the details. We're starting off with our business, where the first motion is to amend the expense policy to allow economy plus travel for greater than 8 hours. The motion, to give you all the background. So the current expense policy says something. So this motion has been sponsored by Grant and second by Avi, but I'll let Grant and Avi talk more about the motion. Grant?
Essentially, it's just about returning the expense policies exception for travel over a certain distance and time to allow for economy plus or the equivalent seats. Because what's currently happening is each time somebody needs to book something like that, they ask for an exception, and that goes through the process of an exceptions process. So let's just update the policy so the policy states what we do in reality.
Anyone has any questions?
I almost feel like it should be 6 hours, not 8 hours. But I'm a tall dude, so air flight is not comfortable.
I feel your pain.
Yeah,
So you should say above 5'6". Sorry, Glenn.
Grant, do you want to amend that to 6 hours or compromise on 7? I'm okay either way.
So look, I've worked in organizations where it's been 6 hours. I've worked in organizations where it's been 10 hours. I'm happy for that to be whatever is deemed reasonable. What is in here is what we currently do. So if it's over 8 hours, we currently allow it. But if it's 6 hours, if that's what the board thinks is reasonable, I'm okay with that. Jubin has his hand up though.
Jubin.
Is the scope of this any flights or is it staff flights, board member flights?
This is any flights paid for by the foundation.
Right, okay. And what's the?
It generally
What's-
applies to the board, keynotes, and staff travel.
Because part of me wants to say, look, for keynotes, I think it's a non-starter that regardless of the duration of the flight, that they should get economy plus equivalent. Right, and then I would, but you guys don't like that.
Are you saying that they should default to economy plus?
I think
or
so.
they should never get economy plus?
They should default to economy plus.
So he's saying the keynote should by default, whether it's 6 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours, they should get economy plus.
I would disagree to Jubin for one reason. I think we should either do for all or for none. So you know me, I don't like exceptions for certain roles. That's the only reason why. So I think it should be one rule for all.
I agree, Martin. I'll get to the rest. And I think the same should be true for our staff, right? I think for the vast majority of the flights that they'll take is within the continental US, and we have people that live in the middle of the country and then on the coasts, or on one of the coasts at least, where travel is probably going to be 5 or 6 hours, but 5 or 6 hours is still too little. So I was going to say, like, drop this to like 1 hour at the very minimum. That'll fix it for both staff and everybody. And the economy plus difference, we're talking about a couple $100. Like it's not enough for us to. I think foundation should default to buying tickets at economy plus for everyone.
All right, Glenn, you want to? Well, we let that sink in.
Yeah. So of course I do like the proposal. Just my only concern is what it look. If we spread this out over a year, what would the financial aspect be, right? In terms of money, how much more will this cost us, and do we then think it's still good to do, right? Because
I remember very clearly sitting in that chair, Glenn. But certainly this time of the year, as the treasurer, you feel, we managed to get through the year without breaking the bank. Let's not do anything crazy next year and break the bank.
Well, yeah, I just want to be prepared to at least to say yes to something. I at least have an estimate about, like, that we at least thought through, like, okay, it's going to cost us, I don't know, 25K more or whatever, but at least have a figure. And yeah, that's the only concern I have now, that I don't have the figure. I have no idea what the impact will be if we put it to 1 hour or 8 or 6 or whatever, and
So
for whom it all will be applicable, because that's also a very correct statement, at least, right?
So to answer your question, Glenn, we've been doing it more than 8 hours for everyone anyway, as an exceptions process. So this would not modify our financial position. If we did it as at the 8 hours as it is written today, it wouldn't modify our financial position with respects to what we've been doing already, because this is already the case. It's just making it the rule rather than an exception. Mart, Jibin, you still have your hand up. Is that from previously or is
No,
that again?
it's a new hand. I'll go after Martin.
Okay, Martin.
Yeah, I think also the thing is that we always can be asked for recently. So when you have a break, when I booked economy, and then you get this last minute upgrades fee, then it's only 50 euros for economy plus. So it's also to be smart. If I would book it upfront on economy plus, it would be more expensive. Kelly also put in the chat the current ruling for keynote speakers. It says after 7 hours to be economy plus. I generally agree to the 6-hour rule, because when you look from Amsterdam to New York, it's a 6.5-hour flight, or the other way around now from New York to Amsterdam. But it's a long sit. I don't know in the US flights. I think the economy plus, do they exist in a continental flight? I know in Europe only in the intercontinental flights.
We have economy plus for, like, you can get an economy plus flight for, I've taken flights from Sacramento to San Francisco, which is 30 minutes, and I've done economy plus.
Posh. Yeah.
I don't know what it is economy plus there, but like, so we did this for my previous employer, where the cost of economy plus is 20% on average more than the cost of a regular seat. So can we just find out what the number is if we increase, like, how much money did we spend on air flights, and can we consume 20% more? I think it's, but like doing it by hours is a hard thing, because then you're gonna create more exceptions anyway. Because like, what happens if you have a layover? What happens if it's a 8-hour flight, but you have a 2 4-hour layovers? Like, does that not qualify for economy plus? Like, these are the weird, like, is 20% worth it?
That's actually covered in
Total
the
flight
language
time.
that in the language of the motion that Grant suggested here.
Yeah, total flight time. So if your
I see.
2 flights together were at or greater than 8 hours.
Does that
no matter
include
how long they
layover?
are. No, flight time.
Total flight time.
Yeah, but
I see.
so this then
Time
they
in
have
the small
same
seat.
thing. Yeah, but if they have the same thing, then I could take a different flight, so a different route, and have done the plus time. I think it's, and I really like what Harold, can we read it out also, Harold's comment? That's the only reason why I raised my hand.
You could specify the flight time must be booked in advance by 1 month or 2 months, so that the last minute flights are not auto included. So that's got to do with expensive flights happening last minute, then also being economy plus.
Good one.
I feel like yours might just complicate things. I am curious, Jubin, when you said on average, the flights are 20% more expensive, is that still the case? Because I feel like airlines bump things up in the past few years, like a lot.
Probably, but I would assume that the percentage is still relative to the cost of a non-economy plus. We haven't done this since 2019, but it was back then it was 20%, and we made the decision that everybody is going to get economy plus.
Is that true internationally as well, or just within the US?
My organization doesn't do international trips, so it was not.
All right, just point of fact, anecdotally, most flights leaving Israel economy plus is anywhere between 60 to 110% more expensive than economy. I don't know if that's an exception or common either, just to point out.
So Lisa, I think that's a great suggestion. Shelby, can you weigh in on what other organizations do?
Yes, I don't have, I'd have to check with our events team. They're going to have a lot of information on this. For some of my other clients, I don't have the figures right now, but I can definitely do some analysis and get back to you on that. It really varied between my clients.
Okay.
And actually, I've only been with virtual for the past year, and I could say a lot of our clients haven't been traveling just because we're all ramping back up for from COVID from the past 2 years. So let me check, let me get a good pulse on that, and then I'll get back to you guys on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think this topic needs more discussion. So should we take a vote right now, or should we have another round of discussion?
What I'd like to do is ask the board to approve this motion and then make it a bigger discussion as part of the expenses thing. Because this is essentially just making the rule what we already do. So it's not asking for a change in ways of working. It's just asking to avoid the exceptions process every single time. Martin?
Agree. Oh, Martin has a question.
Yeah, as I recall, if I could recall correctly, is actually what we did. We did have a expense policy. We used a company's example for this.
Yeah.
I agree with Grant for this wrong ruling to make the exceptional rule. I'm good with that.
Avi?
Two things. First of all, regarding the 8 hours, I see what Kelly posted regarding event keynotes, and the rule there is 7 hours. I'm wondering if it makes sense to just keep it unified and do the same thing. The other thing I want to point out is that the current policy does not actually specify across the board for all flights economy only. It's not in the expense policy. It's in the events policy regarding the events team, and not regarding everybody, all the other flights. I also thought I had seen it in the expense policy, but I went looking for it and it's not actually there.
So it should become one policy.
So we should we, it doesn't actually say it explicitly anywhere, and I think it should.
Right. So Juven, you suggested 2 votes in text.
Yeah, that was private to you, but I don't want to derail this, but I'm suggesting we vote on the written text except switch 8 for 6, so 6 hours. And then if that fails, then we can take a second vote on it being 8 hours. Everything else is as written. The first time we'll take a vote will be 6 hours. Do you guys agree with that approach?
I'm happy to sponsor that.
But it's not the expense policy, right? So that part is actually the event policy then.
My suggestion, Glenn, is still the expense policy. It's as written, except we substitute 6 for 8 and take 1 passive votes.
In other words, this would go into the expense policy as the policy for flight expenses.
So we would need to add on one more small section. All other flights will be economy only, because it doesn't actually say that right now.
It should be economy only, except for flights longer than.
Right.
To allow economy just flight over great hours, or okay. So end that sentence with, if economy plus is not available, all other flights will be booked as economy. Yep.
Yep. Can you put the text on screen or share it in the chat? Make sure that everybody sees what we are voting on.
I'll put it into the chat, because if I put it up on the screen, then I have to take away Vanana's share.
Let me stop sharing.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah. So now it's only the flight that is 6 hours or longer can be economy plus.
Yeah.
What about the keynote speakers that are 7 hours? And then it sounded like one of the other policies, the events policy, had something else in it. Do we want to harmonize this across everything?
It should be the event expense policy, certainly, in my opinion.
I agree.
That's all. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes, please. Sorry.
So when I travel to US, generally my flights are longer than 26 hours. And there's no economy plus, I've checked. It's only in the odd flights, which has layover of like 15 hours, 16 hours at times at Turkey or some other place. So in that case, what shall we do?
So the motion currently allows for that scenario, Renata. It says, or a single step upgrade from economy if economy plus is not available.
So the one step up or the next step up covers that, I think, right, Anna?
Yeah.
Got it. Is
Should we
there,
vote?
yeah. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So can you please read the motion once again before we take the vote, Grant?
Sure. The motion reads now, resolved, the board amends the expenses policy to allow economy plus travel for a total flight time greater than 6 hours, or a single step upgrade from economy if economy plus is not available. All other flights we booked as economy.
So, thank you. It has been sponsored by Grant and second by Avi. Now, as we are all ready to take votes, I would go ahead with the people that I see on my screen. Grant,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jubin,
Yes.
Avi,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
and a yes from my side. So the motion has been passed, where the board has amended the expense policy to allow economy plus travel for a total flight time greater than 8 hours, or a single step upgrade from economy if economy plus is not available.
Yeah.
Moving on to the go
Greater
ahead.
than 6 hours, which is
Greater than 6 hours. Sorry.
if this page
Oh.
rebuilds quickly enough, you'll see it change to 6.
Let me refresh it. Sorry.
And to
Do we
point out
need-
that we need that there are
Yeah.
other various references that need to be brought into line. Remove the reference in the events policy and update the keynotes agreement as well. Just to be clear on that. Based on
Yeah,
this update.
we'll make sure they're all aligned.
Yeah, I totally agree with Avi that should be only one policy. And a good question from Kelly. Who can do that?
I can do that.
Just
Go ahead,
do it
please.
as a PR, Andrew, so that because I think Kelly's asking the authority. So if you do it as a PR and somebody else approves it, then references this, it should be fine.
Yep.
But technically, I think you probably have the authority to approve it anyway.
Okay.
Well, the
Okay.
board has approved the change, and so the thing to my mind is just to bring them all into alignment, either by removal or alternatively, like in the WUFU form, there's an informational section. So we can just simply say as per the events policy or as per the expense policy.
Can I suggest that we just put a boilerplate saying the expense policy oversees the text on this document? So in case there's like, if there's something in conflict with the events with the expense policy takes precedence.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, the expense policy is the way that we process travel charges. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that wherever we've got some other things where expenses can be incurred, we just simply say, please review the expenses policy for travel.
Yeah.
Anyone has any further questions? I'll take it as a no. Moving on to the next motion, which is to approve diversity and inclusion event scholarship. To give you the background, it's for the travel. There's no travel or event scholarship budget for OWASP events, wherein there are speakers. There are really good speakers who want to travel, but for some reasons they don't have enough funds to travel. So this motion would allocate $10,000 for global events for diversity and inclusion scholarship in 2023 for OWASP events. Avi, do you want to add something to that?
I think you covered that really well. The only thing I will point out is those that it's not coincidental who doesn't get funded by their companies. It's always the people that are already less represented as a group. And we're seeing this time and time again, and even specifically with regards to Dublin, this has happened repeatedly. And I'm not saying that we need to fund specifically, one group. It's just those are the ones who are always lacking because their companies will fund them less.
Martin has a question, and then we would go with the Jubin.
Yeah, I always agree with sponsoring for diversity inclusion. The thing is, this is now allocating funds, but no ruling on how that will be split. So I was worried about that. So it's good to allocate the money, but it must be also transparent and clear, the process on how you apply. Because you say now for speakers, this is only for speakers, it's for all people. Because I think it should not, again, not too much differentiation. And it must be a clear and transparent policy on how to apply and who will gain the money. But I'm totally happy with that.
So Martin, there is the awards and scholarships policy, which is how this would be handed out, and it is transparent if you want to review that.
And the process. So not only policy, but also the process must be done. Okay, thanks. Jubin.
So I love this, but isn't $10,000 within the discretion for Andrew to cover this as he wants? Why is there board action needed for such a low amount? So either we up the number, because this is within the ED's discretion as is. So either we up the number, or I don't understand why this is needed.
So I'd like to jump in there with an answer. First of all, I absolutely agree. And with regards to the Dublin event, we did not want to wait for the board meeting. And because it's well within Andrew's discretionary amount, he actually went ahead and did that with a few of the speakers for Dublin before actually approving this. That said, this is a sizable chunk out of the event's profits or revenues. And especially when we look at this several events per year. And you're right, it might be that we need to make that a higher number. We just started with this. The point is we need to get this as an explicit line into the budget. And to do that, that won't be a discretionary amount, but we want to have that on vote and on paper that's actually allocated permanently for that until further notice. And you're right, it might be a higher number. That said, I'm going to let Grant go ahead, but I just want to point out that we probably should table this and not vote on this now until we finish discussing budgeting and possibly postpone it to next month. Just point that out.
I know Grant had his hand up. Can I just ask a follow-up question? Was there a reason you guys chose per global event rather than allocating the scholarship fund per year and using the scholarship policy to figure out who gets it? So then it could be a larger sum for the year and it can be dispersed as needed, because like many of the groups that are not able to come might favor some of the other events that might be closer and therefore need less funds for those events, whereas some other ones may need it more. So I think we should make this larger and use our inclusion and diversity committee to figure out how this is handed out properly.
That is a really good question. I think the idea is that we do want to have a certain amount available for each event. We don't want to, let's say we say 50,000 for the year. We don't want to spend all that on the US, right? We want to spread that around to several of the conferences. It might make sense to change this, when we have a better idea of the budget and know how much we want to actually allocate. It might make more sense to have a yearly allocation plus per event as well, because it's around the events, right? As opposed to do a bunch of scholarships, send a bunch of people to Black Hat is different than bringing people to our conference.
Fair enough, but that's an operational decision that I think we should give the ED and staff the ability to make that decision on. I think like we discussed this at the face-to-face, and I apologize, Glenn. I'll make this last statement. I'll hand off. That we said we need to enable and funds need to be made available, and the board is responsible for doing that. But we just need to give the operational flexibility so that the staff, the committee can make those decisions. So I'm in favor of making this amount. I will vote yes for this if you guys want to take a vote for this, but I think we can do more to reduce operational complexity for the foundation.
So you're saying it should just be one lump allocation for the year with no restrictions, and it might just be send 50 people to Black Hat if that's what the staff decides.
If so hear me out on one reason why that would make sense. There might be strategic decisions why we want to have a larger showing at certain events. And those strategic decisions might change year to year. Black Hat might get canceled, and to say we just don't get that 10K for Black Hat is I think a miss for the foundation.
I really think we should be favoring our own events over third-party events, but
so I had my hand up to
Brian,
clarify.
yes.
I had my hand up to clarify that this wasn't just about speakers, but it was aimed at our events. When this was discussed originally, it wasn't just about speakers, it was about attendees too. And it was just about our events. It was about sending people to our events. So it wasn't necessarily part of what the diversity committee might want to do with sending people to other events, right?
I see. But I think everything I said still stands. Like we should clarify this to say OWASP global event.
Yeah.
Sure.
Glenn had his hand up first.
Glenn, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm fully supporting to allocate money per event or as a yearly pool of money for the diversity and inclusion. But what I do think indeed it's a bit low on the low side, and I think it should be like a fixed amount of number. So of course, yeah, there should be flexibility for staff and operations to choose, but there should also be a reasonable limit. And yeah, I think we should discuss this actually with the new board, how much the overall total budget would be for this slot actually that we're going to put into diversity and inclusion events for scholarships and stuff like that. So I would say, yeah, I like it, but I think it should be more, and it should be framed with a limit. And I think the next board, the new board, should decide on that. Because at next point, we still need to talk about budgeting of 2023. We have nothing concrete there, not even a good insight yet. So I think we should wait for that as well and discuss it with the new board members.
Martin?
Sure. Martin?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of aligned with Glenn. So we all are in favor to sponsor inclusion. But the thing is, that's for Tuban, it's something that must be in the budget. And definitely when you do it not once, but twice, then it comes 20K and how you will extend it. So it must be in the budget so we can trace it. And for the transparency of also of our expenses, and no surprise for future boards as well. Yeah, I totally agree with Glenn, and it's also for the new board. I totally agree with that we have to do that. That said, we only have 40 minutes left.
So probably let's table this motion because this needs a greater discussion, and we would change the, I think we have already added OWASP events. So we would table this motion as agreed by everyone, and we will have a further discussion on it. Hope everyone is okay with that.
We need a super majority to table it.
Yeah.
We do.
So but before we table, for the next board, as you vote on this, remember one of the hard lessons that this board, at least in my 2-year, has learned is trying to make too many operational and daily decisions where we need to step away from that, right? So whether you guys want to do OKRs or KPIs, whatever the next board decides, there is a goal that we have with this, which is to increase inclusion. I think we should make that funds available and trust that the ED and the staff and the committees will properly use it. And if they don't, we can verify and remove the funds for future years. But I think we need to take a little bit of risk and have some confidence in the decisions we've made in the past.
Yes, I totally agree with that. It's also the what is the abuse? So the justifying the more guardrails for what you risk. But I also think that transparency and reporting is very clear that it must be also in place. And yes, we have to lower the overhead, but also we have transparency and guardrails and responsibilities.
But again, so Martin, I understand where you're coming from. The point is, even if that transparent, like to me, those are evolutionary steps to grow. And if there is a lack of transparency, let's put a finger on it and grow it. Let's not make decisions for assumed lack of transparency because of historical reasons or whatever. I really think we should assume positive intent when we're having these discussions, and the guardrails that we already have in our policies should be enough for that. Like we shouldn't make assumptions for the negative.
That's what I meant. There's not assumption for negative. So as I said, always that the guardrails are there. So what is abuse, and abuse most times is we have a very friendly community. That's what it is. But the transparency is more than that. It's also transparency that you know that you can apply for transparency, is that the process has been reviewed, is shown that the people can find it back, and the people can also know and learn about it, right? Transparency goes all the way. But you know, it's my wedding anniversary today, so I hope for a short meeting.
We'll move on.
Happy
to the further-
anniversary.
That's like 80 now, 82?
What?
You
Marriage
have to speak
anniversary.
up,
Happy
Avi.
anniversary, Martin.
Vandana, can we take a vote on tabling that just for
Yes.
process?
I think we don't need a vote to table it.
We
No.
do, and we
No,
need a
we do.
supermajority.
Part of the agenda.
Okay, so let's go by the people that I see on the screen for tabling the motion. Motion to approve diversity and inclusion event scholarships. So Grant,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Avi,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Jubin,
Yes.
Bill,
I'm sorry, is the motion to table this discussion?
table
or-
it. That's
yeah.
right. Table the
then-
discussion.
Yeah, yes.
And a yes from my side. So we are tabling this motion.
Okay.
Now moving on to the Commons announcements. The next discussion is about 2023 budgeting and planning, which Glenn would lead. Glenn, over to you.
Yeah.
Do you want me to stop sharing?
No, it's fine. So I think it can be rather a quite quick one. It's just, you know, I've been talking to Shelby and Andrew, and I think it makes more sense to actually, because we also need to extend our strategic meeting as well in the beginning of the year. We still don't have fully the inside of the books, how we are now at the end of the line, and how we're doing. How much is actually there to be spent? How much room do we have? So it makes more sense to actually to go into the early of the next year to then actually approve and come together also with the new board members. Yeah, with the planning and budgeting actually. So normally I would say it's already starting at the end of the year, but actually we want to push it more into beginning of January. To do it also with and including with the new board members. That being said, I do have a question for Shelby. Do you now have an idea when we can actually, you know, have a more accurate overview of the budgeting for 2023?
Yeah, that's a good question. From Kelly's note that we'll be able to finalize the events for 2023 by the end of this week. As long as I can get the event budgets, I can work them in hopefully by the end of the month. Just really it's dependent on as soon as I have the final event budgets, then I can create the finalized numbers.
Yeah, because that is something we really need for our preparation, I would say, also for the strategic meeting, because we can have all these nice strategic ideas, but you know, if we simply have very little budget, then we need to make very specific decisions, of course, on what we will do or what we cannot do. So yeah, I really hope we will still have it in this year, to be honest, so we can actually well prepare you know, our meeting for in January. So this is also just my sort of announcement to all the others. When we do receive the budget overview of Shelby, have a good look at it. Maybe Shelby, if you can outline actually what you think would be like room for us to actually have. For example, one of the things that was on the wish list was a new staff member, for example. Some other things maybe that was discussed in a strategic meeting in San Francisco. But anyhow, that we at least have a sort of a budget pool which we can easily allocate to these strategic goals for 2023. So yeah, we can also take that into account when we are defining the strategic goals, and then well, together with the new board, actually finalizing the budget.
Absolutely. And I do have a salary calculation prepared with a new hire and also without. So I can incorporate that in. Really, our biggest drivers of revenue and expenses are those event pieces. So it's gonna sway it quite heavily. So once I have those numbers, I can give you a more finalized picture.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you for that. So yeah, that was actually more the announcement, not really discussion, I guess, unless somebody has a question.
Yeah, kind of the next topic actually kind of connects to this, talking about staggered board terms, which really connects directly to some of the issues around what you were saying. The easiest thing might be around changing our financial year, but my understanding, Shelby, is that that's not possible to change when the financial year starts and ends.
No, I don't believe that we can change our financial year once you incorporate, you decide what your financial year is going to be. And I've actually never heard of anyone updating it. I'm not sure if legally that's something we can do, but it seems very unusual.
Right. So the alternative, I mean, we could just continue going like we are now, which is kind of, as Glenn described, it's kind of painful. A possible alternative might be shifting the board term, so the new board would actually start Q4, spend a couple months being familiar, and then be ready to approve the budget ready for the next year.
And is that also in overlap with the current seating replacement board members, or?
So the way I see it is that would have to be the next election, right? And because of the staggered elections,
No, sorry.
we have to be
I meant more, sorry, so I meant more like, so they start like 2 months earlier, but then the old board is still also present in this?
No, I mean to change when the board shifts over. Right now,
So
the
instead
board
of the new board starting in January, they start in September.
Right, and this would be at least a 2-year process, because of those that are already voted on the board. It would be a problem. I'm saying, so the next 2 elections, hypothetically, might be for only 9 months and not for a year, and then we will be able to, you know, reset when the board actually starts.
Yeah, because now we have a downside, right? When we do it at the budget planning and we push it to the new board and we have the meeting in January, then we finalize it, then probably in February we can actually do what we want to do. So we are like, let's say 2 months behind of the budget and planning and figuring out stuff, right? So you lose basically 2 months. And for now, I think it's a fair trade, because I don't think the old board should decide for the future when they're going to leave, right, the board. But to be honest, yeah, it would be making sense to extending it, adding them early in the process, so we can actually, from the start of the year, already go on the money, go on the planning, the budget, everything. That it
Have to
really
have
is
it a
like
couple
a,
months. Yeah.
yeah, like a good running engine. It feels like it's going to stall now for a couple of months, and then we can continue doing our stuff.
Right. So to be clear, this is going to be complicated. And it's a long term, it's at least, like I said, I think I see it as at least 2 years to reset that. Question is it worth going through that effort to solve that pain, as Glenn said?
Martin has his hand up.
Martin wants to say something.
Yeah, so first, not to contradict Shelby, but you can, as a company, change your financial years. There's methods for that. It can be a shortened year of an extended, I call it stub year, where you add 3 months, or you can shorten your previous year. So it can be done. It's a legal process. It's very not that hard. It's not a legal process. It's a tax process actually, because the only thing for your financial years is tax revenue. That's the only problem. So yes, you can change it. So one thing, and the reasoning, and I brought up with Avi, is we always have the same problem for many years, and I tried to change it before, but it was a big problem so much that we had bigger problems to solve. That's why I ever went through. The advantage is, as Avi said, now we decide, of the previous board decides on the budget for the next board. And our board changes in theory every year. So that means that every year we have at least 1 or 2 board members that have not been able to bring anything in to their 1 year period. So it would be really good to have the board period start 3 months ahead of the financial year. That will be, so I really, in favor. How we do it, if we change the board term, or that would be a policy change, or if we change the financial year, I don't care. I just see it was always a pain, like as we do it now. And I think it's really good if you would change it. And I think in my perspective, from my experience, the nicest way for most people know that when you start something, when you start the 1st January, it's very easy, very clear as a board term. And when you have in 3 months time, and to say per 1st of April, so after a quarter of a year, because first you have to do roles and you have to get together and everything, makes sense then to start the financial year per 1st of April. That would be my advice. I don't think that we should vote on this now, maybe, because we need some investigation on the complexity of this change. But I think it's really good to have this ball rolling.
Yeah, but you're talking about European tax laws. This is US tax laws.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm talking US tax laws.
There is one. It's called Form 1128, which Grant just put into chat. But he also put out that there's quite substantial legal issues. So yeah, I think honestly, it might be worthwhile for Shelby to look into Form 1128 and see what's required.
Absolutely. Yes, I can do that.
We are not a big company with a lot of staff members where all you need to change for our financial year. It's much easier than a big international company. Glenn has his hands up. Sorry.
Yeah, I like the tax movement fiscal year thing, but to be honest, like Grant already pointed out, it can be quite undertaking. Actually, I like the idea more that Avi said, like let them start, the new board members start a bit earlier and longer. Because they get the situation, where are we, what things are we discussing? I mean, I see Matt, the new board member, as well joined, so very nice to see you here. But yeah, I think it's good also for new board members to be already sort of hitting the ground running when we start the year in January. Then yeah, I mean, they're more involved, then they're more up to spec, and they can be involved into the budget planning of next year. So for me, it makes more sense actually to extend it, add them earlier in the process. Yeah, then actually going the painful and the hard possible impacts of the financial stuff by changing the financial year. But that is just my opinion.
I just want to be clear that I don't like the suggestion I made. I just think it's better than nothing. If we can change the financial year I think it'll still be better, but just,
Yeah, I just came up with one point why I would change eventually and not the board term, because we have 2 conferences a year and kind of expect the board members to come together. Actually, we have an obligation to come together. So as our dates for the conferences changes, sometimes now look at this year, our European conference is in February already. On the other side, we had sometimes that our American US conference is in November. So it is also harder when you change it from a board presence at least twice a year. So there are a lot of pros and contras, and I think definitely should be investigated what is the best.
Any more on this topic?
I think we should have this discussion later on. We're almost near to the end, and it's better we discuss at length about it, because this is a very big discussion that needs attention.
And research. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, it's holiday social event. If time permits, an end of the year holiday social event would be held after the meeting adjourns. So today, Andrew, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to thank Jubin and Martin for their service on the board. I think honestly, it's really important to say thank you so much for all the effort you've put in. Jubin in particular has been, I've met him several times and he's been very, very active in this last year. So I really do want to thank Jubin and Martin for his extraordinary and lengthy service. So.
Yeah, and I always spoil it. I'm not leaving. I leave the board, but not always.
Yep.
And I still kind of Jubin on 1 or 2 things. We tried to start, but we failed, both of us.
Yep.
Also with open source code.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Especially now that we're not on the board, we can actually focus on those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Now, I
Okay.
do realize that it's beer o'clock in European and Indian and Tel Aviv, but basically it's still the morning for us. So.
You're gonna have a
Oh, you
10:30
can see my
a.m. beer.
screen right now. It's 12 yeah, it's midnight. It's past midnight.
it's always 9
Wow.
o'clock somewhere.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Hey,
But
if it's okay, I want to thank the board and Andrew and the staff. Honestly, like when I ran for the board, I did. This is not what I expected to be doing. This is way more valuable than what I expected I'd be doing. And I didn't run for next year because I have a very busy life coming up. But you guys haven't seen the last of me. I'll be running in the next election and competing for probably some of you guys. But it's been just such a tremendous time being on the board, and we've had some difficult times, and I couldn't have thought of a better team to have those difficult times with. So I appreciate all of you, and I enjoyed having those discussions during those difficult times. And I'll still be around if you guys need help with anything. Please let me know.
mm-hmm.
We will call on you, Jubin. Don't worry.
I was going to say, I think it's one of the better boards. As Jubin said, you have all the plans, things you will change. And I think I talked with several of you guys that whatever you come with best attention and you come in and everything you think it should go. And I remember one guy once ran for the board and he said, oh, we should not have politics in the board. But you cannot be more than one person, let alone being in a multinational organization and not do politics. We had rough waters. We had EDs come and go. We had smaller and bigger crises. I learned a lot about people, the good and the bad. But I think generally there's a pleasant ride, and I always love being by OWASP and the people from OWASP and see them and be together. That things. It's being on the board. It was pleasure and the recognition and working with you guys. No, all the previous boards, good and better. It's nice. And thanks for this, right? I can't see it. I brought it with me.
Yes.
It was a nice place next to me.
So Jubin,
guys.
yours is on the way as well. Okay.
I was about to say the same thing.
At least
I
two
don't-
terms
what
before you
what
get
is
one.
it? I couldn't see because your background blurred it.
It's an Oscar.
It's an
It's a
Oscar?
trophy.
Emmy.
Oh.
I get it.
I thought he was holding a World Cup, making a reference, and I'm like, you guys lost terribly.
I don't care about World Cups.
It doesn't even matter which you guys you're referring to in that point, because all of the guys that Martin could potentially identify as.
That's exactly what I mean.
Listen,
You don't
I
know
want
what I can identify.
Martin, the proper meaning of politics is any kind of interaction between people that are trying to get things done. I think your point, the larger point is toxic politics. And there have been toxic politics in the past. And I was expecting to have to deal with it this year. And I am so glad that there was none of that. At least one
Yes,
year without
but-
toxic politics. So kudos to both of you on that.
Yeah.
You,
No,
you
but
both have
it's-
been amazing. I think Martin is other than probably Jim Manico, I think Martin is the person from OWASP that I know the longest. Just FYI. So
Mm.
I think you're starting something very cool, and I think we should take this forward and push for every board member that steps down. They should be urged to either join or take up a committee or an initiative or something else, and not just go home goodbye. So Martin's taking up events committee. Jubin?
And
I'll take whatever you guys want.
yeah, join me in the compliance committee. I will.
I was going to say, compliance committee should desperately need you there.
I will join the compliance committee. As well.
I will. I'm more than happy to do compliance committee once that one issue, which we will not discuss, has met its end.
Once the hard stuff is done,
Once that
Refusing
one
to deal
hard-
with that.
No, I just want to start with a clean slate. More than happy.
I have scheduled my application to the compliance committee to Fiona the 1st of January.
just be aware, Martin, you can only serve on one committee. So
Compliance committee was different. It's serve on a committee or being leading a committee.
Being a committee officer.
yeah, an officer on a committee.
Yeah. And we desperately need something to happen with events. So maybe if Jubin does the compliance committee and you do events, that'd be awesome.
Jubin
So
wants
what
to
have
say
people got
something.
planned for? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. You go ahead and then Jubin.
No,
I
I have a new topic, so you guys finish.
I was going to ask, has anyone got any interesting things happening over the holidays? Are you going to go anywhere interesting or do anything fun?
Well, it's Hanukkah here today, which is basically the social event, a social holiday of fried stuff, literally candles and oils. So we spent the afternoon frying stuff. We made
Awesome.
falafel. We made
Like frying
falafel,
for
fried-
eating?
Oh yeah, frying for eating.
Can I travel to
The
Israel?
only reason why you
for
can fry
falafel?
stuff, right?
Listen, I have a fantastic recipe for falafel. Next time you come, I'll be happy to make it.
Fantastic.
Jubin?
So for my holidays, I do want to write like a goodbye to the board and lessons learned that I'd like to publish publicly. So I'm going to be writing that up. Andrew and I have chat about it, but I want you guys don't get to change what I write, but I want you guys to see what I write before it's published. So I'm going to send it to this board probably sometime before New Year's. And Andrew, I don't know if we'll be able to post it before the new year, but maybe after the new year,
Yeah.
we can post it, and we can also do the fundraiser if you like at that point. That should give us some more time to get more people to buy in.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are you guys okay with that? It's
Yeah.
just, I mean, it's I won't be saying anything that you guys haven't heard me say, but like some of the tough lessons that I learned, some of the work that we do here, the diversity of the work that we do here is what I want to talk about.
Are we going to hear some bad things about us?
I don't think bad. The thesis of what I'm trying to write is that the biggest lesson that I learned, and if I were to run for the board and get elected, is the board is here to enable. It's not here to make decision for the foundation. And we said this at the face-to-face, and I want to kind of summarize that thought and put it out there for the next board and all the boards to come. That was a really important lesson for me to learn, and I can say I made some mistakes in the way I voted in some of the things that live and learn, and I hope I didn't negatively impact the foundation because of it. But anyways, I'll send you guys my write-up of lessons learned, and hopefully you guys will like it. And if you want to give me feedback, feel free to. Just don't get offended if I don't change it.
Sure.
That sounds awesome. I do want to point out that we wanted to reserve some time for a short executive session. That would be the board and Andrew. And Grant, did we want, should Matt also be joining as the incoming board?
I think you should, yeah.
Yes, yes. Executive session should be joined by him. But what we have planned is we have planned something for 23rd of January. Probably we can do around the same time because we need to meet. We all need to meet, including Matt and like the new board members. Let's put it this way. Everyone has to meet before our next board meeting, which is going to be happening on 24th January 2023. So probably we can add ours here where we can meet first with Andrew and everyone around. Grant, you want to say something?
Yeah, so there is something already scheduled for that, Fernando. That's the 23rd. That's the
Yes.
The strategy session. But
Yes.
Avi's referring to an executive session that we needed to have this evening.
Right. I'm saying that we should have the same day because I'm not sure how the availability of everyone says. Probably we'll have it on the same day, maybe before or after the session.
Any reason not to
Glenn,
do it right now?
Do you want to do it right now?
Well, that's the idea. Like we adjourn the public meeting and then have the closed executive session follow-on meeting.
Yeah, I would also rather do it now than together with the strategic meeting, to be honest.
Okay.
And we probably only need 10-15 minutes for it.
Yeah.
Okay. If everyone is okay with that. Okay. I can see a note from Martin as well. Okay, great. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining this month's board meeting. So the special strategy board meeting would happen on 23rd of January 2023, 12 p.m. US Eastern time to discuss the strategy. And we would be meeting with the new board members and everyone around on 24th January 2023 at 12 p.m. US Eastern time. So we are happy to adjourn the board meeting for today. I'm sponsoring the motion. Who's second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Grant. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining the meeting. Board members, please stay on the call with Andrew.
Thanks, everybody.
Hi, guys.
Thanks,
Happy-
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Are we stopping the recording or are we going to keep recording?
I am just going to stop the recording. I'm just stop sharing and then stopping the recording because I was not able to